Why do you think that the TV debate with Obama and Romney went so badly wrong for Obama?
What we're seeing now in terms of politics in the United States is orchestration and theater. So the people in the United States, as well as in our global community, have been witness to probably a year and a half long play in a series of acts. And that's how we have to regard what just happened. The other thing that I think is very important for folks to remember is that while it's theater, it is deadly serious. Politics is being played by some as a game, but it's a deadly serious game that affects the quality of life of all of us and whether or not we even have a right to life for many of us.
Do you think that when Obama says that his hands are tied by Congress dominated by Republicans, is that an excuse or is it genuine?
It's not the Republicans that are tying the president's hands. It is the nature of the U.S. political system that needs fundamental and, quite frankly, revolutionary change. It needs that kind of change because Washington has been captured by special interests. Special interests operate insidiously. Sometimes they are quite open and in the forefront, but most times they are not. It's a kind of covert action, a covert operation, a series of covert operations that happen in the deep recesses of the U.S. polity. And it is that kind of activity. Professor Peter Dale Scott, Professor Emeritus from University of California at Berkeley, calls it the deep state. And it is the fabric of the deep state that creates these deep events. Like, for example, September 11th was a deep event. We've had more deep events, and these deep events are carried out with a specific purpose. And the people who are the targets for changing public opinion never really understand what happened to them. So we are in the midst of dramatic change inside the deep state. The United States, for example, we have Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, who actually was in the Reagan administration. I just listened to an interview of his today where he said that the United States no longer exists, that something new has been created in the place and under the name of the United States of America, a police state. And of course, it's not just the invasion of the closed circuit cameras that are being placed everywhere. You all in London have had the experience of the closed circuit television cameras being put in place with an explanation that crime was going to be prevented, that crime was going to be solved. And yet I saw by one estimate that 80% of the crime in London is not solved, despite having these closed circuit televisions and despite having a surveillance society. A new society is being created, and that is a society that is the antithesis of even the founding fathers who insisted on a Bill of Rights. There are certain rights, constitutional rights, that certain people, certainly not black people in the United States, but certain people took for granted. And now even their rights to life, liberty, and happiness, the pursuit of happiness, are being thwarted by this encroaching police state. So the United States is changing, and that is something that I think the people all over the world, particularly our partners across the pond, need to understand.
What is the state of the grassroots in the US? what's going on outside Congress? Is there a building resistance movement to the police state?
We need to build resistance. We need to create resistance. We need courageous resistance on the part of individuals. But we need to have that resistance organized, which it is not now. I'm sad to say that we do not have the kind of resistance that we need.
How do we get that resistance, do you think?
Well, I think we have to have individuals who are committed, deeply committed to change and to resistance of injustice. There are some people who make a choice and they choose to become perpetrators of injustice. Others choose to remain bystanders to injustice. And there's that unique individual like you and me. We have decided that we really will choose to resist at every turn.
Well, it seems like we need a mass movement for anything to change.
Unfortunately, the presidency of Obama has cost us any inkling of a movement. That's where we've got to do some work. And it's not impossible for us to change the landscape, but we've got to be dedicated and committed to doing that kind of work.
So do you think in a way that because Obama is a Democrat president, people are less likely to build a mass resistance movement to the problems with civil liberties and wars abroad?
Yes, in fact, that has made it more difficult, and the fact that he's an African American also makes it more difficult because people, when they think of African Americans in the United States, they think about the civil rights movement. They think about the United States being a country that needs to overcome. And so all of the imagery of the struggle of civil rights and the dignity of those people who were not willing to compromise comes to mind. But unfortunately, it's a different case with our president, who has shown a willingness and a readiness to bomb people, to kill people, to target assassinations, to do all of the things that the African American community in the United States never, ever for one moment agreed with.
What do you think the consequences are of Obama being president for US foreign policy? Do you think there'll be much change with the US foreign policy at all?
It seems that the more things change, the more things remain the same. More killing, more drones, more military industrial complex, more wealth transfer to the already wealthy. Those are the policies of the past 4 years, and I see no reason to expect any change. I hope for change, and I work for change. I literally work for change every day. I wake up every morning and I say, what can I do today to resist? No matter what it is, no matter how small, what can I do today to resist? And the more people that we have who accept or adopt that attitude, I think we will be able to push the ball a little bit further down the field so that we can make a goal. And the goal is truth. The goal is justice. The goal is peace. And then, of course, the goal is earth and human dignity.
For people that aren't familiar with who you are or your background, do you think you could just give a very brief background?
Born and raised in the southern part of the United States, so I'm southern bred, southern by the grace of God, we say, and sometimes it comes out in my accent. But I served in the United States Congress for 12 years from my home state of Georgia, first African American woman to serve in the Congress from Georgia. And then in 2008, I basically got fed up with things being the way they were, the crimes against humanity, torture, crimes against the peace, and war crimes. And so I declared my independence from the national leaders that made my country complicit in all of that, and accepted the Green Party's request or invitation to run for president under the Green Party ticket. And so that's what I did in 2008. It was a very, very difficult race because, of course, that was at the same time that President Obama was trying to run, and as candidate, Obama had the themes of hope and change, and people became swept up in the ideas put forward about what it could be that a black person in the United States could represent the kind of hope and change that black people had consistently fought for from the very inception of this country and the theft of Africans from Africa, from the continent, and brought over here in the enslavement of them. So this conjured up ideas of the United States turning a new page. But what we've learned, sadly, is instead that it is possible to have an African American who can become president, which in and of itself, I believe, brings a certain different kind of hallmark, but this is not the right African American. For example, in the past, we've not had the right women. When Madeleine Albright became the first woman Secretary of State, and when she said that it was all right that 500,000 Iraqi children could die as a result of U.S. policy, and she said it was all right, then I celebrated the fact that we had a woman as a Secretary of State, but unfortunately it turned out we had the wrong woman. So I celebrate that we can have a black man and a black family in the White House, but we've got the wrong black man. If that black man can order targeted assassinations, can order drone attacks, can kill people at will with the stroke of a pen, that's the wrong kind of black person, not living up to the values and the morals of the civil rights movement. So that is another thing that unfortunately we've learned, and it's created a kind of disequilibrium that has stalled people who would ordinarily be spokespersons against empire. They would be activists against war and military, financial, media, industrial complex. Now they are stunned. They celebrate one aspect and remain silent about the more critical aspects. I cannot remain silent. And so that's why I think I've been invited by you guys, because you also are compelled by conscience, as I am, to speak out, to stand up, to not remain silent, no matter who it is that's dropping the bombs, no matter who it is that's signing the policy. We have a moral compass, and we must stand firm.